Today I'm showing you the full setup for a OpenCloud server, how to set up a server and how to install it properly on a public server, also with DNS settings. So everything right from the start. And with this, welcome to LinuxOrt. My name is Jean, and just for notice, if you have any problems with your Linux desktop or your Linux server, just have a look at the video description. There I put you the link of our Linux support. Today we want to install OpenCloud, a very good Nextcloud alternative. I also made a video about this with a local installation. Just have a look into the video description. Today we are starting with a separate server and with valid DNS settings and so on. So what do we need in advance as prerequisite? We need 4 domain settings. So we need somewhere a DNS server setup. So you need a DNS hoster, like for example, I'm doing everything with Hetzner today. They are very affordable and I'm using Hetzner myself for many years now. It's my favorite server hoster, I would say, but of course there are also many others. So we need DNS settings and of course we need a public server or a hosted server, as they are saying Hetzner, AWS and so on, with Linux and SSH access. We start with our domains and we are continuing with our hosted server, and then we are heading to the OpenCloud installation. So at first we have to log in via Hetzner, and I don't show you the buy process you need for your domain. Maybe you have already a internet domain. It could be also at another server hoster, of course, where you have to set 4 different variables. But at first we need to take care about our own server. So I'm going here to log in, and then I'm going to the Hetzner console here. And here in our project page, if you don't have it created yet, create just a new project. And if we have done everything right, we are in our, in my case, tutorial project, where we have on our side servers, floating IPs, object storage, storage boxes, and so on. At first, let us go to servers here, and then I select add server. Here in add server, I'm selecting a location. In my case, I'm sticking here to Helsinki, but you could choose whatever location you want. And then we can choose the image. So which server software do we want to run? I'm choosing here Ubuntu because it is considered a bit more beginner friendly, but I would say every Linux system would be just fine. For this video, I'm going with Ubuntu. Then we are going to our type. Here you could define if you want a shared CPU or a dedicated CPU. In my case, a shared CPU is just all right. It is a bit cheaper and you are sharing a CPU with other customers, but yeah, this is of course a bit cheaper. And what are we selecting here? We could choose between CPX21, CPX31 and so on. I'm going now with 8 GB of RAM and 4 Intel CPUs. This is just all right. This costs me about €7 a month, so that's very cheap compared to other things. And we already get 80 GB of storage. If you want a follow-up tutorial how we can boost up our storage up to 20 terabytes with this setup, and we just could advance it, just let me know in the comments and I will produce a follow-up how to massively increase your storage later on. So I'm going with this type now. This is just all right. Then I'm going to networking here and I choose the public IPv4 and public IPv6. If you're living in the Asian region, maybe you won't need an IPv4 entry, but an IPv4 entry makes many things easier, especially for computers in the Western world, so Europe or USA. I highly recommend you selecting IPv4 also. So I'm leaving it as it is, and then we can add some SSH keys. If you have an SSH key, then I highly recommend you for adding this. For the simplicity of this video, I'm not choosing an SSH key here, but please make sure, especially with public servers, that you should disable password authentication in the long run, especially for the root account. But again, for the simplicity, I leave it as it is. We don't need any extra volumes. We also don't need any extra firewalls, no extra backups for now. We also don't need any cloud configuration here. We could give it a name. For example, I name it OpenCloud. And then I select create and buy now, and then we are buying the server. I'm also getting an IP address here, and we need this IPv4 address here. So I'm copying me this and I'm saving this for a later point of time. I'm also selecting the server here. Here we see all stats, and we also see an IPv6 entry. So I copy this IPv6 subaddress. So currently my nodes are looking like this. If you look more detailed to this IPv6 address, this isn't any address. This is a IPv6 subnet, so no particular IP address, but we will kind of fix this very, very soon. But at first we have to know our IP address here. And with this, I'm opening up a terminal and type in SSH root at, and then this IP address I just copied off my server interface. And then I type in enter, and then I type yes and press enter, and then I have to type in my password. The password I need to type in I got now via email, so I'm copying this and paste it in here with right click paste, for example, and then I'm typing enter. Nice. And then I can change my password. Please make sure that you choose a very safe password for this, especially if you keep the password authentication, which I don't want to recommend you in a long run. But at first we need to type in our password, which Hetzner sent us, again, because at first we need to type in our current password, and then we can type in our new password. I would recommend you a password with a minimum length of 32 characters here. So I paste it in here. And then if I have done everything right, we see our cloud console here with root at OpenCloud in my case. If you don't have SSH on your computer installed, you could also do it with PuTTY, for example, from Windows. This would also be just fine. And then, very easily connect via SSH. Before we continue with our server, let's get back to our Hetzner console, because now I want to add some DNS entries, some domain entries, because we now have our hosted server, but we don't have our 4 domains set up. So with this, I'm going to my DNS settings of my DNS provider. If you are in Hetzner console, you can do this by clicking on this menu here and then select DNS. I'm going now with a domain called lir.de, and then we have to create some records. We need, in the end, in my case, 8 entries. So for every single domain, we need 2 IP addresses. So at first I go with my first name cloud, and then I type in the IPv4 address. We select an A entry here at first, and I'm choosing the IP address we had in our server here. So I select add record, and then we can add another record. I'm choosing now a CRUD A entry here. This is for IPv6 addresses. I'm choosing also cloud as a name here, and then we have to type in a valid IPv6 address. How do we get our actually IPv6 address of our server? If we go into our SSH console and if we type IP-A, then we get our IP address configuration, and here I have the IPv4 address we already entered, and here's our IPv6 address. So I copy this here. Very important, you need the scope global here, not the scope link, you need the scope global, and I copy this here into my Hetzner DNS console and then select add record. Nice. And I repeat this IPv6 entry for also Collabora here, like this, and also for WP server, and then for traffic with the same IPv6 address. After some time, these have been added. If you followed correctly, then we still have to add 3 more entries. These are the IPv4 entries for Collabora, WP server, and traffic. So I go with type A again, and then type in Collabora, and then the IPv4 address we already used. This one here. and then wp server also, and then traffic also. And these are now our entries we added. This looks very good. And with this, we can continue to our next step, because now we have all our prerequisites finished. We have our 4 domains and we have our hosted server. So I would say let's start right through. Now let us come to the interesting part. At first, in our new server, we have to install Docker, and this could we do with the official Docker guide. So I go to the official Docker guide. In this case, we have Ubuntu, so we take the Ubuntu installation. If you're using Debian or another Linux distribution, just have a look here in the Docker documentation. At first, we have to ensure that there is no any other Docker version installed. So I click copy here and can right click and paste it in here, or with Ctrl+Shift+V in Linux, I can very easily paste this in, and we can advance to the second step. And here we set up the apt repository for Docker. And this is also very easy. We just click on copy here, and then we right click and paste it, or Ctrl+Shift+V also here on Linux systems. And we paste it in there, press enter, and then after some time, the repository for Docker has been added. This is very important that we can now install the latest Docker packages in our next command. So I copy this here again with this, just paste it in here, and then we issue this command, and I confirm it with a Y, and then Docker is downloading and installing. This takes a little time. After this has been installed, we can now verify that Docker is running perfectly in our system. So we could copy this command here, and then we run sudo docker run hello world. So I paste this command in here, and if we have done everything right, we see a hello message from Docker. So this looks very, very good. Okay. Now we have Docker set up, and now we can start with cloning our OpenCloud repository. I'm doing this here in the root folder. This is completely fine for me. I personally do such things in the root folder. You could also do it somewhere else, but root folder is just fine, I would say, because if we type in ls, we see what folders are inside our current root folder. There isn't anything yet. So yeah, I would say let's download something. At first, we have to ensure that Git is installed at our server. So I type in sudo apt install git. And then we see, okay, nice, Git is already the newest version. This is great. So I copy this command here, git clone, and the GitHub link here, and paste this in here. And with this, we are cloning the whole OpenCloud EU repository onto our server, which needs a couple of time. After the packages have been downloaded, we can now go to our deployment, and our deployment for OpenCloud is in OpenCloud. So we have now, if we type in ls, a new folder here, nice, and we have to go to deployments and then examples and then the OpenCloud full folder, because there we have our Docker Compose file we are using for this. So I copy this here, and then if we type in ls, we see some other files and folders. We see many different YAML files, but also we see a Docker Compose YAML file. This is also very important for us, but for now we go with the env file. I go with nano.env. For this, we open up our text editor with the env file, because this is where we configure our OpenCloud setup. So let us go through this file here. We see here insecure true. If we are at a public server like we are today, we can safely disable this. So we just put an hash in front of this, that this also gets blue, and then that's completely fine. Then we have to set up our domain names, and we see here our traffic domain. So I type in traffic.lir traffic.de. In my case, this has to match to the names in our DNS console we set up earlier. So traffic.li-ir.de. So this is fine. Then we head down here a bit with our arrow keys, and then we go to the OC domain. We type in cloud.li-ar.de. Then we can also set an admin password, as we see here. Please choose a very secure password for that. I'm also choosing a secure password for that with a very simple password generator. In my case, this has 20 signs. Then we go down a bit to demo users is just fine. Log file is just fine. Here we can also define our OC data directory if we want. So this could be important for the future, but for now we leave it as it is. We just go down a bit. Here we also can define an SMTP host for our mail module inside OpenCloud, that OpenCloud is able to send mails right away. This could be also very important, but of course you could also change it for a later point of time. I go down a bit. TK image, nice, Collabora, WOPI server domain. I was looking for this. Here we can define a WOPI server domain. So I define here WOPI server.li-ar.de in my case. This is our fourth entry we configured here. Then we can also define a Collabora admin password. I will also define some. We leave the rest here to the default. Here we have also some other very cool things we can enable, but for now, this is just fine for us. Okay, yeah, this looks just fine. But I would say we configure some other things through. So I go back to the start here, and here we have our traffic acme mail. This would be great if you set this to a email address for our Let's Encrypt certificates that we get valid HTTPS. So I'm going with webmaster@li-ar.de. Something like this is just fine. So then we head over to our production volumes. This is a bit down here. Here we have it. OC config directory and OC data directory. I would say let's just do it from the beginning because they are also recommending it for us. So I change this to data, OpenCloud config, and then also to /data/OpenCloud/data. This is very important for me right now. Please make sure to give a persistent path and we create the data directory in a minute. Now we press Ctrl O, Enter and Ctrl X, and then we close our text editor. And as a second point, we create our directories here. So I'm going with the command mkdir-p/data and then /OpenCloud/ and then these brackets and then config and data. So I do this. And then as a second command, I type in sudo chown. Of course, we don't need to issue sudo here because I'm root, but for you and for consistency, I'm doing it. Of course, I'm aware of that we don't need sudo in every command. In my case, because I'm logged in as a root user here. And then we are going with the big -r and then with our user ID 1000 and colon 1000 with our group ID here. And yeah, this is our command. There we issue the rights that our OpenCloud container can access these both folders. And this is it for our deployment. In our next step, we can set up this OpenCloud container. So I define docker compose up-d. And then I type in enter, and this takes now a bit because Docker is downloading all images These are a lot of images here, and yeah, this takes a bit of time. So just lean back and we see us in a few minutes. After some time, the OpenCloud setup is fine and finished. We give it a minute or similar to set up properly, to boot everything up. And after some time, we can now try to call the website cloud.layer.de in my case. And here we see our OpenCloud login page. Perfect. So it looks everything worked. Let's just log in ourselves with the username admin and the admin password we just set. This should be this password. I type it in and then we are going into our OpenCloud window here in our public server. This is what we want. And here we can, of course, add new folders. Let's have a look for our document. So I go with our open document. I call it test.odt. Let's create this. And if everything worked, oh no, we get an error. Collabora.opencloud.test server IP address could not be found. I guess we forgot something, so let us get to our terminal. And if I open up my nano with my .env file, then I go down to Collabora domain. Let's have a look what we inserted here. Here we are. As you see, we didn't insert anything here. We inserted WP server domain, but we didn't insert Collabora domain. So I type in Collabora here .li-ar.de in my case, and I press Ctrl O, Enter, and Ctrl X. And now we have to set up our OpenCloud again, and for that I go with Docker compose down, and then I press enter, and then our OpenCloud containers are stopping all. This takes a bit of time, perfect. And after all containers are down, then we simply issue docker compose up-d, and then I type in enter. And after 1 minute, I go to my OpenCloud domain again, and we have a look if we can log in ourselves again. And I paste in my password, and then here, oh nice, we actually see our test ODT file. And then let us now try if Collabora is working. So I open that up, and yeah, now this is working perfect. I close this, and then yeah, we can type anything here. Subscribe to Linux.org, for example, very important. And yeah, if we want to save it, we can do it here with our save button here. And otherwise, we can also close it here again. And then we are back in our files. Very nice, very easy. Here we have our application switcher for text editor, App Store, Draw.io, for example, but also administrator settings. Like if we want to create new users, we can do this here, for example. Also, we get a documentation if you want. Nice, very, very easy. And this is it for our OpenCloud video for today. So in the end, what are things I can recommend you doing after this video? At first, I highly recommend you, if you didn't do it already, secure your SSH login. Don't use a password for your SSH login. Please use a certificate. If you want a follow-up video about this, where we are doing this, just write it me into the comments. Also, one other point is very important. We have to consider backing up our server and create daily automatic backups. This would be also very important for a productive OpenCloud environment. Also, we have to consider updates or updating OpenCloud frequently. We could do this also in a follow-up video if you want. And otherwise, just hardening our existing Ubuntu server, that this server gets more secure. So if you want a follow-up video about this, just leave me a like and write me a little comment that I know you are interested in this. And then in the end, I would say have fun with your OpenCloud instance, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.